Part 32. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Jonghu Buletin. Chapter 311. Duan Kyoan was extremely angry. Although he was older, he was still full of energy. The words he spoke at this time were also vigorous and resolute, as if he really had to do this next second. Duan Xiao's face didn't look good either. Although he was middle-aged, he had been sitting in this position for a long time. Now that he finally had such an opportunity, Duan Xiao naturally wanted to move up a level, so Duan Yang didn't like it. But it is the best excuse to give to show your loyalty. The reason why Duan Xiao wants to tell his father is because Duan Yang's matter could obviously be concealed, but his father just called the police directly, and even made many inquiries later. Relationship, getting Duan Yang in, can be regarded as directly eliminating the path for Duan Xiao to rise at that time. To put it bluntly, my younger brother killed his mother. As an elder brother, whose side are we on? Duan Xiao was teased by others for his father's righteous extermination of relatives, but there were also people who laughed at Duan Xiao behind his back, thinking that Duan Kyoan's actions directly ruined Duan Xiao's future. But those who are going up cannot have too much control over others. When Duan Yang's incident was exposed, Duan Xiao was in the period of his ascent. The 32-year-old Duan Xiao was very high-spirited and thought he could continue to go up. Before, Duan Kyoan directly revealed the matter. Although he was called a righteous exterminator, Duan Xiao was directly trapped in that place. In the past 10 years, Duan Xiao has been trying every means to take a step forward, but it's always because my father can't move forward. How terrifying is this for a man obsessed with power? It can be said that Duan Xiao vaguely hates his father, thinking that his father did not care about his future at the beginning. If he really cared about his future, his mother's affairs should not have been exposed. Dad, it's been so long since this happened. Mom has passed away. Even if you hold on to the past, it's impossible for Mom to come back to life. I know you have a deep relationship with Mom, but even if I have a deep relationship with my mother, and I have to take care of my son. I have been in this position for 10 years. For 10 years, I have been suppressed by others. Can't you feel sorry for me? Someone is willing to help me now? They just want to use Duan Yang to manipulate me. If I can go further, it will be good for the future of our Duan family. Today, I am begging you. Dad, please let me think about it too. Duan Xiao's face was full of pleading. When he reached middle age, he had children, a wife, and even power. Duan Xiao was no longer the coquettish kid who hugged his father Duan Kyoan's thigh. Duan Kyoan looked at his son who was now taller than him and sneered. Yes, your mother has passed away, but your mother was killed by someone. How could I let the murderer go free? Duan Xiao, do you know? After what happened to your mother, I was the first one to regret it. You shouldn't have been thinking about work all the time, and you were always busy. Your mother brought you to you when you were 7 years old. Later, after she gave birth to Duan Yang, your health has not been good. Duan Yang was raised by your grandma, not with your mother. Forget it, but you were brought by your mother. Why are you such a white-eyed wolf now? I shouldn't have thought about your future in the first place, and sent you out for training before you turned 18. This affection is gone. You keep saying that you want me to do it for you, but do you think of your mother as your mother? Do you think of me as your father? He was still in a high position back then, and Duan Kyoan could clearly see the idiot son in front of him. In the past 10 years, the reason why Duan Xiao did not go up was because Duan Kyoan intervened. Although Duan Kyoan stepped down after his wife's death, he has many friends and descendants. It can be said that his network of connections is dozens of times that of Duan Xiao. Even now that he is living in a nursing home, if something happens occasionally, someone will come to ask Duan Kyoan for help in solving the problem. Although Duan Kyoan is as cold as a stone, he is also thoughtful and has a clear understanding of this eldest son. Once people get their rights, they will probably get lost at some point. When his wife passed away, his eldest son was about to be promoted. Because of this, he failed and had a big quarrel with him. From that time, Duan Kyoan he knew that the son no longer had any sympathy as a human being. He doesn't care about the death or survival of his biological mother, nor what kind of person that younger brother is. He only cares about whether he can rise up, and only cares about his own future. Duan Kyoan had already seen clearly such a cold-hearted white-eyed wolf. Later, after living in a nursing home for 10 years, his son did not come to the door a few times. When he came to the door, he always had quarrels, and the quarrels were all about Duan Yang, for rights and for own. Duan Kyoan will not tell the son in front of him that the reason why Duan Xiao has not moved in the past 10 years is that he is suppressing him. He just wants to see his son working hard for the so-called future, watching him sink into pain, and watching he was helpless and his years of hard work were in vain. Only in this way can the dead wife feel at ease and Duan Kyoan feel better. As for what will happen to his future son or his future grandson, that is not what Duan Kyoan wants to care about. His heart died the moment his wife passed away, and no one would live in it anymore. Dad, what are you talking about? How can I not treat you as my dad? And Mom, I was also very painful after what happened to Mom. The family has always worshipped Mom's tablet, but the dead are dead, and the living still have to move forward. There will be more futures in the future. There is also my son, your grandson. You can't always live in the past. You have to look forward. Am I your wife, the most important person in the world, and am I not your biological son? Why do you dislike me so much? I have had a hard time these years. Duan Xiao's eyes turned red, and he spoke sincerely at this time. It was the most painful to stay in the same position for 10 years without any change, because generally speaking, this thing is like learning, if you don't make progress, you will regress. Just to keep this position, Duan Xiao has spent all his thoughts, and there is no other way. After all, if you don't work hard to protect yourself, it will be squeezed out in a few minutes. He didn't know how many connections his father Duan Kyoan had. Duan Kyoan hadn't retired back then, so naturally the connections didn't fall into Duan Xiao's hands. Now, he knew nothing about it. If Duan Xiao had performed better back then, I'm afraid that all the connections in Duan Kyoan's hands would have been in Duan Xiao's hands now. After all, how could a father not like his son? Are you sad? I can't see you're sad at all. Now in order to get promoted, you have to release the enemy who killed your mother from prison. It is said that the hatred of killing relatives is irreconcilable, but you, the blood flowing in your body is cold, which makes people feel cold. Duan Kyoan sneered, knowing the son in front of him very well. Duan Xiao, with red eyes, knew that he had no way to get past his father. Even if he got his brother out, his father would have a way to get his brother in, so he could only clench his fists in anger and finally leave in silence. Duan Kyoan just stood there, watching this good son leave, expressionless. Liang Qiuxiang accidentally heard all this. It was awkward to go out at this time, and it was awkward not to go out. He didn't know what to do in the same place, and then he heard someone talking. Who's behind? Come out. After all, he was a soldier before, and Duan Kyoan's reconnaissance ability has not been forgotten even when he is old. Liang Qiuxiang was very embarrassed, but he still pushed the wheelchair over. Duan Kyoan was very angry, but when he saw that it was an old man in a wheelchair, he knew that the man might be visiting the park, so he was not angry, but just stopped talking. Looking at the cold and hard face of the old man in front of him, Liang Qiuxiang had already heard the meaning of the quarrel between the father and son just now, and couldn't help but say that, Brother Duan, children and grandchildren have their own blessings. We are all at this age, and we just do what we want to do. If we get angry at everyone we meet, it will be hard on our bodies. He said awkwardly, as if he wanted to persuade Duan Quoin in front of him, but he couldn't summarize the language. After all, after knowing the other party's identity, he really felt the difference between heaven and earth, which made Liang Qiuxiang not know what to say. I'm not angry. I don't consider this beast my son. Just pretend that I have never had a son in my life. Duan Quoin has calmed down and recognized Liang Qiuxiang while talking. I know you. You have a very filial son-in-law who treats you very well. After Liang Qiuxiang was hospitalized, the son-in-law followed him every day. Although Duan Quoin had never seen him, he had heard about him dozens of times from other people. He, that's because my daughter found a good one. My daughter is just busy with work and is very filial. The two of them actually started chatting like this. From the beginning, Liang Qiuxiang was a little nervous, but now he talked about it with relish. Liang Qiuxiang found that this cold and hard old man didn't seem to be so difficult to contact. He was a good person. While the two of them were chatting, Xie Zhou went with the nurse to care about his father-in-law's rheumatism and the like. When he followed the nurse, he met a middle-aged man. The man glanced at Xie Zhou and the two passed by. This person was none other than Duan Xiao, who was leaving. Duan Xiao frowned. He was already unhappy because of his father's stubbornness. When he saw Xie Zhou, who looked so good, he felt that he had seen this face somewhere before, but he couldn't remember where. Maybe all good-looking men are the same, so Duan Xiao put this matter behind him. Liang Qiuxiang happily exchanged contact information with Duan Quoin and successfully made friends with this big man. After returning to the ward, he kept showing off to Xie Zhou. Don't look at him as serious, but he is a good person. I kept talking to him and he didn't get annoyed. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 312. Okay Dad, I understand. Did you listen to the precautions the doctor told me? I will tell Butler Wang later. We can be discharged from the hospital next week. Rong 11 and Ziyan miss you very much. You'd better hurry up. Get well and go home. During this period of time that Xie Zhou was serving here, he spent most of his time studying issues related to rheumatism and arthritis. Because the system gave him new plasters, he also started asking people to look for some Chinese herbal medicines and then do it. If once a drug is classified as a drug, it will be difficult to get approval, and it may even take 7 or 8 years to pass the review. But if the drug is a cosmeceutical, it will be very fast. He plans to start making cosmeceutical patches to treat rheumatism and arthritis that his father-in-law suffers from. The external publicity they will use at that time will probably be to protect bones and legs, etc. If it doesn't work, it can be approved as a domestic product. Health product brand. Otherwise, if you want to wait until the drug is officially reviewed and approved before production, the daylily will be completely cold in the past year. Okay, I understand. I miss them too. It's just that children can't come to the hospital all the time. What if they get sick? You open the tablet for me tonight and I'll talk to them. Liang Qiuxiang's hospitalization this time can be said to be the most comfortable. He has 24-hour nursing staff and his closest son-in-law to talk to. They don't talk about daily life and illnesses every day. Most of the time, Liang Qiuxiang teaches his son-in-law to read the account books. Or to manage a company or something like that. After all, having created such a big foundation, Liang Qiuxiang's ability cannot be underestimated. After knowing that his son-in-law's cosmeceutical company is getting better and better, Liang Qiuxiang will also help with ideas, share some of his own experience, and then give Xie Zhou a reference for the future development of the company, etc. every time he sees that his proposals are approved by others, all of which made Liang Qiuxiang very happy. After all, as an elder, you naturally want to help the younger ones. If you can come up with ideas to make the younger ones better, you will naturally be happy. Even Xieting's whose company's products have been promoted in Liang's group. Liang's group engages in e-commerce and various channels have been opened to Xieting's whose company. Otherwise, it would not have been able to develop so fast. Well, Dad, I'll get it for you tonight. The father-in-law and son-in-law here have a close relationship, but in the other nursing home room, Duan Qiuan is used to being alone and feels very comfortable. Afterwards, Liang Qiuxiang went to talk to Duan Qiuan in the morning. After all, he finally made such a big boss friend, so he naturally liked him very much. As a result, after a few days, many people who could only be seen on TV came to see Duan Qiuan. The way those people bowed their heads to say hello to Duan Qiuan was extremely cordial. Even Liang Qiuxiang was even introduced, which made him extremely nervous. This Xiaoan is from the customs. Aren't you doing business? If anything happens, you can contact me. Duan Qiuan likes Liang Qiuxiang very much. After all, although Liang Qiuxiang is a businessman, he is not a Philistine. Duan Qiuan also likes to hear Liang Qiuxiang talk about some family matters, so he wants to take more care of him. The effort of these words can be remembered by everyone around him. Live in Liang Qiuxiang. Okay, Liang Qiuxiang quickly handed over his business card. The people around him were also generous and handed over their business cards. After all, it was Duan Qiuan who introduced him, so they naturally gave him face. Everyone who came had heard that Duan Xiao had come 2 days ago. They were afraid that Duan Qiuan would be angry, so they came here to comfort him. Now that they saw that Duan Qiuan was in a good mood, they felt much relieved and stayed for the whole morning before leaving. Liang Qiuxiang's hands were shaking when he walked out with these people's business cards. When he was counting these business cards in the ward, he was so excited. Ting Zhou, I have met a noble person. Look at these business cards. I will never meet the people on them in my lifetime. Even if I do, they will just nod and bow. They can destroy our family with just one sentence. Now, they all give me their business cards. Sure enough, the more awesome these people are, the more low-key they are. It seems that I was not low-key enough before. I always show off in front of other people's bosses, which doesn't seem to be very good. He deeply felt that he did not fit the characteristics of a big boss, which made Xieting Zhou laugh. Dad, if people like you, you can accept it? It doesn't matter. It's just that you are going to be discharged from the hospital. If you want to come back to see me later, I will send you back to see me. Xieting Zhou had never met the so-called Mr. Duan. He was busy with plaster matters and would also ask the doctor some things. He never stopped Liang Qiuxiang from socializing. Okay, Liang Qiuxiang happily collected the business cards, and then waited for 2 days before telling Duan Qiuan that he was going to be discharged from the hospital. But he quickly promised that he would come back to see Duan Qiuan when he had time. After all, everyone he is retired and still takes care of his children at home. He also said that he would bring his 2 grandchildren to Duan Qiuan. It's better not to let the child come to the hospital. It's not good for the child. I also have a villa over there. If you want to bring the child to see me, just meet there. Duan Qiuan met Liang Qiuxiang's 2 twin sons and liked them very much, because the 2 twins really looked like his brother-in-law. It was a pity that his brother-in-law died young that year. His wife was good-looking, but it was a pity that his genes were not good. The eldest son let me put it aside, I am not as beautiful as my wife, let alone my youngest son, I don't know who he looks like. In the end, Liang Qiuxiang reluctantly said goodbye and followed his son-in-law out of the hospital. Xieting Zhou still hadn't seen the so-called Mr. Duan. After sending his father-in-law home, he saw that his 2 sons were very happy and his mother-in-law was also in a good mood. Then he felt that it was good. Life is like this. Apart from life and death, nothing big happened either. Liang Chujun was naturally overjoyed when he saw his biological father discharged from the hospital. Although he was very busy at work, he would come to have dinner together every day. Xie Tingzhou, on the other hand, suddenly went to the laboratory to get busy. He was not seen for the next few months, but he did not delay. Liang Qiuxiang showed off his children and his son-in-law. Liang Qiuxiang enthusiastically took Liang Rongzi and Liang Xian to make an appointment with Mr. Duan, and then Duan Qiuan rarely went to the villa he bought a long time ago for the sake of his children. Although no one lived there, it was cleaned very well every time. Clean, he is not close to his son, and naturally he is not close to his grandson. When he sees that the two children look similar to his brother-in-law, he naturally likes them very much. When Liang Qiuxiang arrived at the villa with his two children, Duan Qiuan fell in love even more. He liked it when he saw the photos before, but now that he saw him in person, he shouted "Grandpa," which made Duan Qiuan feel even more comfortable. Duan Qiuan directly gave very precious gifts to the two children, which made Liang Qiuxiang so frightened that he wanted to refuse, but he did not expect that Duan Qiuan insisted on giving them. These two children are destined to me. I like them. Why can't I do this? These things are all external things. It's good to give them to a child. It was because he really liked her that he did this. To prove his feelings, Duan Qiuan also took out a photo of his wife and brother-in-law. "Old Liang, look, this is my brother-in-law. He is very similar to these two from your family. I liked him as soon as I saw him. His wife was not as good looking as his brother-in-law, and Duan Qiuan and his wife were childhood sweethearts. It could be said that they watched his brother-in-law grow up after he was born. Later, he died young, which made Duan Qiuan sad for a long time. Oh? Is this a relative of yours? He looks similar to Rong 11 and Ziyi Yan, but he looks more like my son-in-law." Liang Qiuxiang said this as soon as he saw it. He really felt that the person in the photo was the most similar to Xie Tingzhou. He immediately remembered that his son-in-law's previous parents were not related, and quickly asked, "Where is this relative of yours now? Does he have a child? What does the child look like? Does he look like him?" When asked this question, Duan Qiuan looked a little sad. "My brother-in-law was not married. He died young at the age of 20. Naturally, he would not have any children. My wife and I watched him grow up. Unexpectedly, he did not even have any descendants." After hearing such a result, Liang Qiuxiang immediately gave up his thoughts, but felt that things in this world were so magical. "This is really miraculous. My family also had parents before, but when I returned to my hometown last year, I suddenly realized that the parents were not my biological parents. After I came back, I never thought about finding my biological parents. I just saw this photo, and I thought I could find Tingzhou's biological parents, but now it seems that not everything in this world can go as planned. Tingzhou thinks openly and regards me and his mother as the closest parents. I am also happy in my heart, but as a father, if the child can find his biological parents, I will be happy for him." Duan Qiuan was not a nosy person to begin with, so he was a little surprised when he heard this, and then said, "Why don't I arrange some people to help?" According to Duan Qiuan's ability, the investigation of the matter will soon come to light. "No need," Tingzhou said. "There is no need to look for it. If there is a destiny, it will be destiny. If there is no destiny, there is no way to force it." Liang Qiuxiang refused, but he didn't know what he was rejecting. He just felt sorry for Tingzhou. After his previous illness, Liang Qiuxiang regarded Xie Tingzhou as his own son and hoped that Xie Tingzhou could have the brightest and most beautiful future. It would be best if he could find his relatives, and it would be best if his relatives loved him. Duan Qiuan didn't say much, unwilling to make decisions for others. "I'm lucky to get it, but I'm going to lose my life. This is how many things in this world are. It's good that your son-in-law can think about these things. He seems to be a good person. The two old men were discussing Xietingzhou, and Xietingzhou was busy day and night. Although he had the help of the system, he still needed to work hard to make a very effective plaster that could treat rheumatism and arthritis. So almost half a year later, Xietingzhou finally took out the rheumatic joint pain bone patch he had developed, and it had passed the national registration and was given to his father-in-law. "Dad, this is the bone patch for rheumatic joint pain that I have developed over the past 6 months. You can try it first. If your legs can feel better, I will be happy." Liang Qiuxiang was simply shocked. He didn't expect that his son-in-law had been busy for half a year just for himself. He was immediately flattered and immediately agreed. He thought that no matter whether it was useful or not, he would reward Xietingzhou well. This thought alone made people happy. And he never expected that this plaster developed in half a year would actually cure his rheumatism and arthritis. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletinjian. Chapter 313. After applying the plaster for 2 months, the new year has entered winter again. Generally speaking, people with rheumatic bone pain know that this disease is painful when it is windy and rainy, which is probably like the pain of bone spurs growing in the bones. But this time, the winter wind came again. After the sky became cold and cold, when the first snow fell, Liang Qiuxiang felt that the pain he was used to did not come. Even his knees did not feel cold and painful in cold weather. He walked more comfortably and even climbed the stairs without feeling tired. Great! This ointment is really powerful. Tingzhou, the happiest thing in my life is to have a good son like you. Let alone son-in-law, she directly talked about son. Recently, Huang Shutong was also very jealous. After knowing that Xietingzhou specially developed this plaster for rheumatic bone pain for her husband, although she was happy that her son-in-law was thinking about her husband, as parents, she still had some expectations at this moment, thinking that her son-in-law was so capable that he would definitely not forget her. But she couldn't say this, otherwise it would be very greedy. "Dad, it's okay as long as you're well. I just can't bear to see you suffer. You actually woke up in pain in the middle of the night when you were in the hospital before, right? You just endured it by yourself and didn't call me. With this plaster, you will get better." Xietingzhou smiled and looked at his mother-in-law. "Mom, I heard from Chu Jun that you have always had high blood sugar. Recently, I've been thinking about whether I can make some health products to suppress high blood sugar. If I make it, I'll give it to you. Don't be afraid. What I can take out from my laboratory is good stuff. There will be no problem." Thinking of the original owner taking out so many drugs to poison his father-in-law and mother-in-law, Xietingzhou felt it was quite boring. Now that these drugs have been developed, they can just go through the channels of Liang Group. Now Xietingzhou's industry has already reached tens of billions. There is no way, I caught up with the east wind. Last year, Rongzi paste was sold abroad, and even our import and export product quota was increased. There are also big trends for facial masks and other products. It can be said that it has developed well. Liang Qiuxiang is not a fool. After meeting the big boss, he went to hug his thighs, so he made a lot of connections. This time, Xietingzhou's plaster was not a health product, but was approved by the State Food and Drug Administration, which was enough to see the difference from the original. So it is certain that Xietingzhou will make money, and this plaster will also make a lot of money in the future. Medicines are very profitable. Then Mom will thank you in advance. I know that you are a thoughtful child. Unlike Chujun, you only know how to work. You are the only one in this family who remembers me and your father." Huang Shutong laughed immediately, and then teased her daughter cheerfully, which made Liang Chujun sigh helplessly. A few days later, Liang Qiuxiang took Liang Rongzi and Liang Xian to Duan Qiuan to show off. Grandpa Duan. Grandpa Duan. The two children are very close to Duan Qiuan and like this grandfather who knows a lot of things. They always like to listen to Duan Qiuan talk about things on the battlefield and watch military exercises with him. This is the favorite thing of the two children. Rongzi and Xian are here. Come on, come on. Grandpa just asked the chef to prepare your favorite Australian steak. Come and eat with Grandpa. Later he hugged both of them. Although both children were 8 years old, Duan Qiuan had no pressure to hold them. Liang Qiuxiang, as their grandfather, was envious. Old Duan, didn't I tell you before that my son-in-law developed a plaster for rheumatism and bone pain? I didn't expect it to be so effective. I applied it for 2 months. My waist and legs are no longer painful this year. I used to feel terrible every time it was cold, but I feel comfortable this year. I also brought you a plaster when I came. Remember to apply it. Duan Qiuan was a soldier, so he naturally had more scars on his body and his bones were naturally injured. So this plaster is also very useful for him. It is a token of Liang Qiuxiang's kindness. I know, you just want to show off your son-in-law. Can you come here every day to say something else? Duan Qiuan has been talking more in the past year. Maybe he has more contact with the children. Now he is happy every day. He treats the two children as his own grandchildren. Now he lives a comfortable life. Liang Qiuxiang is smart and never brings Liang Chejun and Xie Tingzhou here. After all, the two people have different identities. If they come here, it will not be good to be too close. It is better to bring the children here, so the relationship between the two is so close. Grandpa Duan, you are so nice. Grandpa Duan, I like you so much. The two children have hugged Duan Qiuan and kissed his cheek. In addition to their grandfather, their favorite person is Grandpa Duan. Because Grandpa Duan is gentle and smart, he can answer any questions you want to ask. Liang Rongzi has secretly told his brother that he wants to be a soldier like Grandpa Duan in the future, fly a plane, a fighter jet, and a tank. He wants to be an excellent soldier. Liang Xian supports this very much. Anyway, soldiers are so cool. If my brother becomes a soldier, he must be super cool. The two children were put down to play by themselves after a while. This villa now has a lot of things for the two children to play with, such as the game room, and the Lego and toys everywhere in the hall, all of which belong to Liang Rongzi and Liang Xian. It is strange to say that Liang Qiuxiang also brought the two children to meet his old friends, but he has never seen his grandson so clingy. However, Duan Qiuan obviously had a cold face, but the two children acted as if they didn't see it, just sticking to him every time, which made people feel strange. The two children were playing Lego on the table, and then they saw a folder on the side. There were a lot of papers on the folder. I didn't know what they were, but when the two children Liang Rongzi and Liang Xian were having fun, they suddenly accidentally touched it. Arrive. With a bang, the pile of information fell to the ground, which startled the two of them. They quickly bent down and stuck out their buttocks to pick up the things. Unexpectedly, while sorting the paper, Liang Rongzi suddenly let out a sound. Ah! The two adults were chatting, and now they both looked over. Wrong 11, what's wrong? Liang Rongzi then took one of the papers and showed it to his grandfather. Grandpa! Look, the man above looks like Xie Qingping's father. He already knew that his father was not the Xie family's biological son, so now he directly called Xie Qingping, which made Liang Qiuxiang stunned. What? That's a member of the Xie family. Xie Qingping's father is Xie Tingzhu's fake brother, a fake relative. He quickly took the piece of paper and saw a face with a buzz cut on it, which seemed to be the photo taken in prison. He tried hard to think about what that man looked like, but he just couldn't remember it. Duan Qiuan was also a little strange. After all, this file contained a photo of his youngest son. The eldest son had recently come here because he was mentally retarded. He brought information about his younger son's good performance in prison in an attempt to impress him, but he kicked him out. Then I called and had my eldest son put down. It's better to keep this idiot busy, otherwise he will always want to do stupid things. Wrong 11, come here, who do you think this one looks like? Liang Rongzi was very sure and nodded directly. The one above is Xie Qingping's father. He is the child of the family who bullied my father. Duan Qiuan still didn't understand, but Liang Qiuxiang finally understood. Old Duan, I said that my son-in-law's parents are not biologically related. I didn't find out until 2 years ago. Before, I suspected that he had something to do with your brother-in-law. Now that I see it, is there something going on? Do you know this person? As smart as Duan Qiuan, his mind was already spinning rapidly, and he thought of the most ridiculous possibility in the world. My wife gave birth to the child in Hiang City. I was in the army at the time and did not go back. Lao Liang, tell me if your son-in-law is from Hiang. He was born on July 8 and will be 37 years old this year. It's so ridiculous. Qiuan's hands are trembling at the thought of his wife's death. Liang Qiuxiang also realized that this person may not always look like his father. Most nephews look like uncles. Yes, I am from Hiang City. My birthday is July 8. I just celebrated my 37th birthday this year. Duan Qiuan really couldn't control himself now, and his voice began to tremble. The photo above is the beast that killed my wife, my son Duan Yang. There was a thunderbolt, almost like thunder, hitting Liang Qiuxiang on the forehead. Liang Qiuxiang did not expect such a possibility. This Tingzhou maybe. Liang Qiuxiang couldn't say this. Duan Qiuan calmed down quickly. I'll call someone to investigate and let him know when the truth comes to light. Who he is naturally self-evident. So when Liang Qiuxiang got home, he was feeling dizzy, and he didn't know how to tell his daughter and son-in-law. He thought that if his son-in-law had such a father, he would be too awesome, right? Also, I thought that my grandson was clinging to Lao Duan before, but I didn't expect that it was really a blood connection. 3 days later, Liang Qiuxiang received a call and hurried to the Duan family's villa. How is it? Liang Qiuxiang didn't know what kind of result he wanted. But when he saw that his old friend's 2 sons were neither living up to expectations nor being filial, he was also angry. If Tingzhou was really the other's son, it would be the best of both worlds. Yes, I asked someone to investigate the hospital where my wife gave birth in Hiang City, and then I found out that because my wife was too weak after giving birth, my mother was not there at the time, and only Duan Xiao was with me. I was afraid that at that time, the 2 children were confused. Tingzhou, he is my son. Just by looking at his appearance, Duan Qiuan could tell that his bastard son Duan Yang looked exactly like the Xie family, while Tingzhou looked similar to his brother-in-law. At this moment, Duan Qiuan also had red eyes. Liang Qiuxiang patted his old friend on the shoulder. This is also a good thing. Call Tingzhou over quickly and do a DNA test. It doesn't matter what you do. Tingzhou is a filial child. If he knows about you, he will definitely be filial to you. My daughter will also be there. Be filial to you. As he talked, Liang Qiuxiang started to get excited. That's not right, why don't you just come and live in my house? My house is very big. Anyway, you are alone now. Then it will be great for our whole family to live together. You can still see your grandson when you open your eyes. Isn't it beautiful? Duan Qiuan was a little sad at first, but he was so moved by Liang Qiuxiang's paintings that he actually followed Liang Qiuxiang to the Liang family. After Xie Tingzhou took Liang Chejun off work, he saw the extra old man at home. Tingzhou, this is Lao Duan. I just have something to tell you. If nothing unexpected happens, Lao Duan should be your biological father. These words shocked both Xie Zhou and Liang Chejun, because the old man did not exist in their memories, and Xie Zhou was also a little surprised. Duan Qiuan was somewhat moved by the scene, and took out the photos of his wife and brother-in-law to show Xie Zhou. Child, look, you look very similar to your uncle, and there is a shadow of your mother between your eyebrows and eyes. Liang Chejun also came over. After seeing these photos, everyone really found that Xie Zhou and Duan Qiuan's wife's younger brother looked very similar. It was not embarrassing to have one more person in the family, especially the two children were particularly attached to this grandfather. After knowing that he was their biological grandfather, they were even more attached. The next day, Xie Zhou and Duan Qiuan still did a DNA blood relationship test, and the final result was naturally self-evident. Duan Qiuan and Xie Zhou are biological father and son, that is, Liang Rongzi and Liang Xian are both Duan Qiuan's biological grandsons. Now there is a feeling of being a member of a family. Liang Qiuxiang is also happy for Duan Qiuan, and directly invites Duan Qiuan to live in the Liang family in the future. How happy it is for everyone to live together. Liang Rongzi and Liang Xian are also attached to the new biological grandfather, so Duan Qiuan has no choice but to agree. He didn't expect that when he was old, he could still enjoy the service of his son and grandson. He also took Xie Zhou's family to worship his wife. They lived happily for a while. When the overwhelmed Duan Xiao knew about this, he found that he could no longer get close to his father. The rights he had been pursuing all his life were all destroyed by his father's casualness. Finally, he fell ill early after being hit. Xie Zhou's research laboratory basically developed drugs based on the illness of his family. Over time, everyone envied the Liang family. Even Duan Qiuan enjoyed the goodness of this son. For this father, Xie Zhou even spent 4 years developing a hypertension drug, which shocked the whole country. Just when the Liang family was very happy and Duan Qiuan was enjoying his old age, the former Xie family could only see Xie Zhou on TV. Since they were found not to be Xie Zhou's biological parents, the Xie family couple returned to their hometown to live, like mice hiding in the sewer. Without Xie Zhou's support, the Xie family couple quickly aged by more than 10 years. Xie Zhou's car repair business was no longer viable. He was directly imprisoned for bribery and sentenced to 10 years. His wife also divorced him. Xie Qingping, whose father was imprisoned all of a sudden, also developed a mental illness because he had been locked up in the house for too long. He became a burden to his mother and was eventually abandoned. Everyone has to pay the price for their actions. Xie Zhou has been showing off his love with the divine doctor son-in-law all his life, while making various medicines, and has become the hashtag most awesome divine doctor son-in-law hashtag joked by netizens. After recycling this golden finger, Xie Zhou continued to move on to the next world. For him, the future will never stop. He likes to use these golden fingers and will always walk on this road of recycling golden fingers. So far, Xie Zhou, an employee of the Crossing Company, bids farewell to you and thanks you for your company along the way. End of full text.